Hello everyone and welcome to a quick little tutorial showing how to connect ScopeBox to Assimilate Scratch, LiveLooks, Live Assist or Play Pro. So here we have the download. It's a zip file, so let's unzip it real quick. Here we go, and just drop the app into the applications folder. Now going to the applications folder, find ScopeBox in there, start it, hit open if you open it the first time, and now we're in ScopeBox. So up here in the ScopeBox menu you will find the install additional software option. If you hold down the option key on your keyboard, this becomes available and you can click it, and this little installer will install all the files and plugins necessary for ScopeLink to work. ScopeLink is basically the connection between ScopeBox and another software host. And what it now did was, if you go to Library, Application Support, Assimilator, Plugins, it created this SDI subfolder and put the ScopeLink plugin inside. You don't have to do anything with that, just ignore it for now. And let's start Scratch in this case. But the process is very similar with Play Pro or LiveLooks or Live Assist. Head over to the system settings, and in here in the SDI settings, hit configure. Because ScopeBox is now basically seen like an SDI card by Scratch. So along with your AJA, Bluefish 444 or Blackmagic SDI card that you might have installed, you now have ScopeLink show up in this drop down as well. So make sure to enable it up here, set the output to whatever you like. I usually go with RGB 10-bit. HD is enough for monitoring. You can go UHD or even 4K if you want. However, that also puts more load on your machine and you have to judge how much hardware resources you want to dedicate for ScopeBox. And for me on my old MacBook Pro here, HD is more than enough. Lastly, make sure that you enable the channel 1 from the Video I/O channel, which is set to output, which is the only thing you can set it to, but make sure that it's enabled and hit close. Okay, and now let's quickly restart Scratch. Oh, actually, before we start it again, in ScopeBox, let's add new source, ScopeLink source, and choose Assimilate. That's it. Now if we start Assimilate, Scratch in this case, enter the project. I already have a clip here. And now let me Alt-tab into ScopeBox. I can see that, hey, I'm getting the image in the preview here, I have the waveform, I have the vector scope. And now before we continue, let's make sure that our output for ScopeBox through ScopeLink is set up correctly. So let's go to Settings, Monitors, and in this case I know that my underlying image is Rec 709, so I will just leave this at source for my ScopeLink output and not flag it with the color space. But also, as you can see down here, our timeline is UHD, but as you might remember, we configured our ScopeLink output as HD. So right now, all that ScopeBox gets is the HD sized centerpiece of our UHD timeline here. So I want to tell Scratch, hey, for my SDI output, which ScopeLink falls under, please scale down the image to fit width. And we don't see anything happening here, but if we Alt-tab back into ScopeBox, now you can see that our image is scaled down to HD and we see the full frame, just like we do here in Scratch. Alright, exit the settings, hit play. This is an 8K red RAW file, so it won't play real time on my 2012 MacBook, but it'll serve the purpose. So Alt-tab back into ScopeBox. Now we can configure ScopeBox to our liking. For instance, let me make the viewer a little bit smaller and for instance call up a new palette, RGB Parade for instance. Place that down here in the corner, and you can configure each one of these scopes. So if I select the vector scope and click the little gear icon up here, I can for instance tell it to zoom in a little please, or show me a color representation, and so forth. And the layout that you create here with all the settings that you can dial in for each scope, you can save that as a custom layout. And actually I've saved one here. Let me call up Matz's layout. So here I have the CIE plot. I have the vector scope, RGB parade, etc. And as you can see, the delay between Scratch and ScopeBox is really small. Pretty much unnoticeable. Now obviously I'm recording this all on a single screen. Practically you would be working in a dual monitor setup and move the ScopeBox window off to a second screen right next to Scratch. Alright, that's it for a quick little tutorial on how to set up ScopeBox with Assimilate Scratch, Play Pro, Live Looks or Live Assist. I hope this was useful to you and see you next time. Bye!